Missed an episode of your favorite podcast? Choose from over a decade of content in our archives, not just the latest episode. All free at gcnlive.com.
This is your call to action. Get prepared, America. Economy, survival, energy, disasters. This is USAPrepares.com. Informative radio, educational radio. Interact now by emailing instructor@USAPrepares.com or text at 434-390-7953. Class, please take your seats. Now, your instructor, Vincent Finelli.
Everyone all set, cocked, locked, blissed? You have your magnesium lotion on? I do. Dr. Shealy, are you blissed?
You bet.
Hey, how is Dr. Shealy?
Well, he's recovering still. I'm walking without a cane.
Wonderful.
And overall, I'm good. I try to ignore the numb foot and do most of the time. And then we haven't discussed the scalar study.
I've got it on my list. That was the next item on my list. How is that? How did it go?
Well, I think it went fabulously. 61% of the people had a magnificent reduction in adrenomedullin.
Wow. So it's working.
Well, theoretically, it suggests that if we could spend time in a scalar environment, and I don't know how much time, but I would say the ideal would be to have something in the bedroom so that every night you get scalar rejuvenation. Because what we got was with us 9 hours a week for 4 weeks. Imagine what you could get 365 days a year for 8 hours each night.
Well, I can tell you that when I was in the scalar room for hours at your clinic, I was really, really relaxed. As a matter of fact, I tried to even read, and it was tough for me. It was tough to do anything other than relax.
Well, interestingly, we discourage people from doing anything but relaxing while there.
I know. I just tried in the early session. I just wanted to see if it would work. Couldn't do it.
Yeah. Well, 2 people actually went to 0 from very high levels to start with. And as it said, 16 out of 26, 61% got a phenomenally good reduction. Now, this is, suggests that what we started off with, the idea that it would reduce adrenomedullin is probably true. It does take me back to the thing that got me interested in it, Cilento, Cilento, a little town in southern Italy, where the people live an average of 95 or more years, longer than any other place on the surface of the earth. Now, I've been in correspondence with the people who showed the adrenomedullin to be low, and I have suggested to them, and they're looking into this, that possibly there's something about the geography or topography or just the general place that increases this background scalar material activity all the time right there in Cilento. But since we don't live in Cilento and everybody can't move there, I think we could do the same thing by having a scalar machine in our bedroom.
Very interesting that you said this, Dr. Shealy. Bert Bertonis and I, he is a patent holder in California. He's a senior USA Prepares instructor. He's a radio frequency engineer. And if any time that you'd like to chat with him about radio frequencies, he's been doing this full-time since the early 1970s. And so he's degreed from a major university in this technology. And he is consulted by some of the largest cell phone companies in the world when they need his expertise. He and I spent some time in Missouri, eastern Missouri, and there's an area that is alleged to be a UFO hotspot. And another famous guy joined us. He'd been on Coast to Coast many times as a ufologist. And we were stomping around on this farm. We had permission to do it, and we were looking around like, what is it? What is it about this particular place, this geography, that would cause people to believe that they see UFOs there, and still do to this day? And after spending an afternoon there with these two gentlemen, I raised the question. Bert Bertonis wanted to bring a spectrum analyzer, and he wanted to bring some measurement equipment. He wanted to measure what could be communications, frequencies of these balls of light that fly around and whiz by and are seen. What is it that they're doing? Are they scouts, bringing or sending back information to the mothership? What actually is going on? And so I raised the question: what is it about the geography? The same question that you mentioned just now. What is it about the geography? Is there a lot of iron here? Is there lead here? Is there some kind of a radioactive deposit here? What is it about this spot that makes this spot special? And so you and I are on the same line of thinking, Dr. Shealy. What is it about that spot? And it'd be interesting to find out. And maybe some magnetic measurement equipment, maybe some radio frequency measurement equipment, might lend an answer as to what is going on there.
Well, of course, the interesting thing is that here we use two different companies' scalar equipment, and we got the same results in both rooms. And there we are, right on a busy throughway, essentially, Chestnut Expressway, lots of traffic going by, and yet people were spending just 9 hours a week. I mean, that's just a little over an hour a day, and had remarkably good results. I mean, obviously, my whole thing is how long I live is totally unimportant. Being healthy until I get out of here is the top priority to me. And it looks as if scalar can assist you in living healthier as long as you're here.
Dr. Shealy, so with this clinical study that you've done, have people said to you anything that you would consider dramatic, like, wow, I can't believe it, just being in there 10 minutes, here's my response, or was it slow and gradual? What was it?
It was much more slow, gradual. However, all the people with diabetes noticed their blood sugar going down, and there were other symptomatic improvements, from just decreasing all kinds of symptoms while in there, and even a month later, even after stopping.
So, okay, then is there a dependency on this? So once you start, were they knocking on your door when you were closed, saying, "Hey, can I come in?" I mean,
have not had that, but have had half a dozen people who have continued to come in because they like it so much.
Mm-hmm. How about the reversal of, or the apparent reversal of significant disease? Did you have anyone there who had cancer, who feels better and is being evaluated for remission?
No, we purposefully did not include anybody with that serious a disease.
Okay.
I would like to now, but I wanted to find out first if we could do the biochemistry.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So it sounds like you're quite pleased.
I'm
to
very
say the least.
pleased. I mean, I honestly think this has the potential for being the greatest health-enhancing discovery of all time. Other than that, Mrs. Lincoln, the play goes on.
And Dr. Shealy, are you saying that because this is a non-invasive protocol, if you will, that enables a person's body to repair itself? Is that what this is?
That's what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm.
Adrenomegaly, high, and these people had high levels, by the way. These were not just slightly elevated adrenomegaly. Adrenomegaly is an indication of how much cumulative stress you've had in your life.
Mm-hmm. And can you share with us what the level of stress, the cumulative stress that the people who participated in this clinical study had? I mean, if we went from a scale of 1 to 10, what the average might have been? Do you have a feel for that?
I'd say the average was like a at least a 6 or 7 out of 10.
Okay, so above average.
Yes.
And did you visually see with your own eyes a difference in them after the 4-week study? I mean, when they came in, and I know some of the people, and you've known them for years. Some of them came from the meetup group. Did you see a difference in them after 4 weeks, just visually?
No.
Okay, so it was measured.
And blood pressure did not change, which is interesting because I would have expected it to go down, especially in those people in which the adrenomegaly went down.
Did anyone get worse?
Time to do the whole thing.
Did anyone become hyper because of the environment, the scalar energy in the room?
No.
I know that when we tried to do a broadcast, you and I and Robert and Dr. Soren's wife, when we were broadcasting in your scalar energy room, I had a tough time getting the equipment to work. And I was wondering, is it because of the scalar energy in the room?
And obviously, that's the kind of thing we need to look at. I still have not been able to, and maybe your friend that you mentioned earlier would be the one to help me. I need a way of describing scalar to the public in terms that I can understand so that they can understand it. And I haven't found a physicist yet who could do that.
Okay, well, Bert Bertonis is the CEO of a corporation in California. He's the senior engineer, design engineer. I'll tell you who he is. He's the guy. Well, when we come back, I'll tell you what he invented, and it's absolutely brilliant. We can brag about him a little bit when we come back. Class Dr. Norm Shealy is with us, medical doctor, and we're taking a slight detour about radio frequencies, and you might find this interesting. And there's a medical reason why I'm pursuing this discussion. So we're talking about Bert Bertonis. He's a senior USA preparedness instructor in California. He's a CEO of a corporation, and they specialize in radio frequency engineering, design, development, and he's a patent holder in the field. Back in the late 1970s, Bert Bertonis was pursuing a very interesting technology, and it had to do with satellite receivers. And these were, back then, the 10, 12-foot dish antennas hooked up to a receiver, and you could aim them at an HBO satellite, and you could pick up HBO with your receiver, and you could own it and have it at your house. And hotels and motels were using these to pipe satellite television throughout the complexes, throughout the motel rooms, hotel rooms, and it was the new industry back in the very late 1970s. Well, Bert found a problem with the technology, and that problem was that the cable that would run from the antenna, from the feed horn of the antenna to the satellite receiver, was made with something. It was a cable called Heliox. It was the thickness of a very large diameter garden hose. It was about 1 inch in diameter, and it was not flexible. If you wanted to bend it and have that cable come in to the side of your house and hook it up to your satellite receiver, you need to use a pipe bender to bend that cable. Well, he developed a technology to reduce the signal from 3.7 gigahertz in that range, 3.7 to 4.2 gigahertz, down to 70 megahertz. And a 70 megahertz signal could be carried by a thin cable, like the kind of cable we have now today, which would be RG58U or RG59, which would be, like cable TV cable, that thin stuff that is hooked up to your cable TV. So he developed that technology, and he patented or applied for a patent for that technology, and that's who he is. So he's a brilliant designer. Now, he's the guy that we'll put you in touch with, Dr. Shealy, and I think you guys would hit it off really, really well. So I'll make that happen. I'll send you an email with his contact information, and I'll call him up and let him know that you two guys...
I have tried 3 outstanding PhD physicists, and not one of them can actually put it into terms that I understand, let alone could explain to somebody else.
Okay. Well, I can tell you this, that he is in our corner. He is very concerned about radio frequencies, microwaves, and he's the guy that went onto the mountaintop in Silicon Valley, probably in the decades ago, to measure the level of microwave radiation. And what he found out was that in the morning and at noon and around 6 o'clock, 5, 6 o'clock in the afternoon, that the levels of microwave radiation would peak in Silicon Valley. So he set up his test equipment on the mountaintop and he looked down at the valley, Silicon Valley, and he made those measurements. They're scientific measurements. And what he determined was it was the sum of all the microwave ovens coming on to cook breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
Wow.
And yes.
And of course, I don't even have a microwave oven. Couldn't pay me to have one.
He determined that. And let me tell you the rest of the story. This is kind of interesting as well. So and the reason he did that is he developed some equipment where he could transmit like the internet using microwave communications. But the problem was the level of background microwave radiation was so great that the equipment could not function as he designed it because of the sum of all these microwave ovens. Then years later, he did the same study, did the same test, went up on the mountain, and he was looking for the floor level. So what is the low level of microwave radiation in Silicon Valley? And what he found out a few years later was the microwave background level had changed. And it was no longer peaking at breakfast, lunch, and dinner. It was higher all the time. So people were eating with their microwave ovens all the time, not only breakfast, lunch, and dinner. They were popping in snacks, eating, whenever they felt like it. Plus, they had the cell phones, plus the cell phone towers, plus all the other microwave transmitting facilities, antennas, and so forth. So the level of microwave radiation, background radiation, went way up. And there was the peaks before were small compared to the floor now, meaning it went way up all the time. We'll be right back. Class Dr. Norman Shealy's with us. NormShealy.com. Norm Shealy, SHEALY.com. Dr. Shealy, I was chatting with a guy several days ago, and this person had just finished installing a satellite antenna on the roof of one of our instructors' farmhouses. And somehow it came up, we were talking about the old days, and I mentioned we were talking about the big dish antennas and the experience that I had back in the 1980s with them and so forth. And we were talking about the microwave radiation that comes out of these antennas. Now, there's a way of looking at this, and there's a medical reason why I'm discussing this. I don't believe that this has ever been this particular topic has ever been discussed on radio. I don't believe it's ever been discussed on television. And this is for all of your safety. I think you're going to be shocked at what I'm about to say. So I was talking with the installer who had just finished the installation, and it just so happened I was visiting one of our instructors' farmhouses, and he just had this Hughes satellite dish antenna installed on his farmhouse roof. And they said, hey, Vinny, you can finish the installation, hook up the rest of it inside the house and hook it up to the electronic equipment. And I said, okay, sure, I can do that. I'd never seen it before, but, no problem doing that. Here's what I learned, Dr. Shealy. The installer told me, in no uncertain terms, that the installers are limited to 6 minutes of exposure in front of a Hughes satellite antenna per year.
Per year.
Per year. So how do you sign up for a company that says, listen, everything's good. Put these in your truck. You can, install these on the roof. But by the way, when you're hooking this up, do not stand in front of it for more than 6 minutes a year. And I don't know what the is, but it sounds like cancer.
Yeah.
Sounds like disease. Now, these are pretty high-powered antennas, and they're transmitting up. So there's a difference between a satellite receiving antenna, one that picks up the signal from the satellite 22,000 miles out in space coming down and concentrating it like a magnifying glass on an ant, to concentrate that light into a fine point that gets very, very hot. It's like that, except it's microwave radiation. It picks it up, concentrates it at the feed horn, at the focal point of the antenna, and then it is converted to useful communications that the receiver can use. But the point is, standing in front of it, limiting the exposure is limited to 6 minutes per year. Now, here's why I'm mentioning this. Birds, of course, are flying, through that path. And there are animals that may end up in that path, bees and bugs and things. And most people aren't too concerned about them. However, how about the guys who work on the roofs? They're re-roofing, or they're in the path, on the roof of fixing maybe a vent or something on the roof, or cleaning the gutters, and they happen to be standing in that path, and they have no idea of the dangers of these communications satellite antennas. That's my concern.
It sounds like the reverse of scalar.
Yeah, destruction.
Right.
Mm-hmm. So I wanted to share that with our broadcast class, because I literally believe that it has never been discussed anywhere on radio prior to just now. Have you ever heard of it, Dr. Shealy? I haven't.
No, not at all. It also makes you wonder what on earth is happening inside the house under that antenna.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if it's 6 minutes up on the roof, what about directly down under it?
Well, what it's doing is it's physically focusing, like that magnifying glass with the light. When we were children, we'd play with the magnifying glass and burn leaves and things. It's like that, focusing at the feed horn. And then, so the most directed energy is right at that feed horn, which is that arm that hangs out in front of the antenna. So that's the most dangerous point. But it seems like just getting near it in the front of it is dangerous. And here's what happens. These guys, when they are finding that satellite, and it's tough because you can't see it with your eye. Literally, I've tried to find satellites with these antennas, and you have the azimuth and the elevation, so you know about where you're going, and then you move the antenna small increments, and you have some kind of a device that measures the signal strength of that antenna on that particular satellite. So you move it a little bit, up, a little bit down, a little bit east, a little bit west. So you get the azimuth and the elevation just right. You look at the meter. But in order to do that, you are right there. I mean, in order to move that antenna, you have to be touching that antenna. You are right there. And sometimes you have to adjust the low noise LNB, or the down converter, which is at the feed end. And you've got to physically stand in front of the antenna to rotate it a little bit to the left, a little bit to the right. You have to physically be there. You're standing in front of it. So I don't know if these guys that are installing have a stopwatch and say, okay, boy, I better hurry up because it's been like 8 seconds so far, 9, 10. It's of concern to me. So class, if you have a satellite television antenna installer in your family, or you know one, you might want to have them do some research and check out what we're talking about and see for yourself if what we're saying is true.
I think they need to find another job.
Because it is. Yeah. It's like working and with highly radioactive substances. It's dangerous. It really is. So I wanted to share that with you, Dr. Shealy. You mentioned something. I think, Dr. Shealy, I think you're way ahead of the curve all the time. And here's why. I was reading an article last night, and I had asked you, over the years about pets and living longer with pets. And are pets, good for longevity? Are they good? Is it good to have pets in the house? Well, they have dander, and of course we want clean houses, but what about the benefits of having some of these bacteria and microbes and so forth running around our house? Is it good? And you said that it is. Well, there's an article that pets. Now, let me just read this. Are pets the new probiotic? And the answer is yes. Isn't that fascinating? You're way ahead of your time, Dr. Shealy. Way ahead.
Well,
because now they're saying
it's interesting.
that
Children
scientists
who are raised with a pet have far less allergies.
Right. That's what you said, and saying this article is saying scientists are paying increasing attention to indoor bacteria, billions of bacteria and fungi that we share our homes and offices with. Not all these bacteria and microorganisms are bad for us, and it may actually be helping us stave off a variety of illnesses. And that's what you were talking about, Dr. Shealy. So, yeah, we don't want to live in filth, that's for sure. But the dog rolls around in mud, sniffs all kinds of questionable things. I'm sure Tonto does that too. I'm sure he sniffs all kinds of things, just as TJ does over here. And then, we give them hugs and, roll around the floor with them. And they, they don't wipe their feet so well when they come into the house. So, and they don't mind running through cow poop. We get it on our shoes. We go, oh man, this is the problem. But, they don't seem to mind so much. I mean, they don't try to do it intentionally, but they do. And they bring it in the house. And so, bottom line, Dr. Shealy, would you share your thoughts again with us as to animals in the house?
Well, animals in the house are good for you and most people, but it needs to start early in life. Adults who've not been exposed to a pet in the house as children may be highly allergic. So your children should be blessed with having pets early on.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay. And is there a desensitization regimen or protocol? I mean, do you start with a young person and introduce that person for a small amount of time, and then gradually increase the exposure over time as tolerated by that young person? Is that the plan, or what do we do?
I don't think so. For instance, when our eldest child was, I don't know, maybe 9 months old, we got our first indoor pet. And all of our children were exposed to dogs and cats from birth after that. So, and none of them are highly allergic to anything that I know of. So I think in general, it's okay. Now, if the family has a history, and there are genetic predispositions to these things, of strong allergies, it might be quite different. But for them, I would suggest they be desensitized by an allergist first. But in general, I think it's okay to bring the pet in and from early on.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. There's an article I was reading about boredom. I just can't imagine being bored. It's foreign to me. Sometimes I'd like to have a list that's a little shorter of things that I need to get accomplished than the list I have. That might be nice. But boredom is certainly something that is foreign to me.
Right.
And I was reading this article
Impossible.
last night. Right. It's just, right. I can't imagine Dr. Shealy being bored. Here's what my take on Dr. Shealy is. If Dr. Shealy is flat out of energy, just all the energy is gone for that day, there's no more energy available, Dr. Shealy is asleep. Is that right?
That's
Either
right.
you're doing something full tilt or you're sleeping.
That's it.
Or meditating.
Agree.
Other than that, yep.
And I think you're the same.
We'll be right back. That's Dr. Norman Shealy's with us, medical doctor, researcher, PhD ×3, author, broadcaster, farmer, Native American medicine man, and so much more. We're going to be talking about boredom in just a minute. But Jean in Rhode Island, welcome. You're on with Dr. Norm Shealy.
Thank you.
Hi. What's up?
Hi, Norm. I attend all your lectures on the East Coast when I can catch you up around New England. And I have been having troubles with ringing in the ears. You had suggested using the rings of fire and the rings of air around the ear. And I've been doing that for 6 months, and it's still like a high-pitched whining. Do you have any other suggestions?
And do you use magnesium lotion?
Oh, every day and night.
Well, unfortunately, those are the only two things that I've found that will reduce tinnitus.
Okay.
Some people call it tinnitus active, but unfortunately, I do not know any other ways of doing it. Wow, that's a hard case.
Yeah, I've heard that some people don't do well with the spray, and I've been using magnesium spray. Should I go to the lotion?
Well, it can't hurt.
Okay.
You can put the lotion. I find the two best places are either on the buttocks and pull up your underpants, or on your feet and pull up your socks. You don't have to wait for it to dry.
Okay. And I just want to say how much I love all your books and everything. And I'm the one that told you about the jovial wheat people over in Connecticut.
Right. Great. Well, I'm sorry you haven't gotten any relief from your tinnitus, but keep trying. And if I come up with anything...
Where would you suggest I apply the ring of fire and the ring of air?
Well, you have to put it on the specific points.
Right. That's what I was asking. Maybe on the point around the ear.
Well, if you get anywhere near them, you're going to get the oil into the point. It's just you have to put them on each of the 12 and 13 points.
Right. I've been doing that. And I've also been applying all 5 of the rings of the bliss oils on my grandchildren, and they come and ask for it now.
Isn't that fun? How old are they?
One is 5, and one is just turning 2.
Wow, that's wonderful.
That they insist that when they come to visit us that we give them their oils, and they have a specific order they want them in, too.
They've trained you well.
Yes, they do.
Gina, I have a question for you, Gene. About the magnesium lotion, about how much, or magnesium spray, how much do you apply?
I've been doing 5 pumps of the spray, and in each hand, and then rubbing it on the buttocks and the abdomen.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And
I think
how about
spray, if I remember correctly, I thought you were supposed to use 8 sprays.
All right, I could be doing not enough. All right. And I had also met a friend who gave up on the spray and found she was better off with the lotion.
Well, I prefer the lotion, but to me it's just easy to put on.
Oh, okay. But it's nice to hear your voice, and I will try that. And
well, many thanks, Gene.
Yeah, it took forever to find you on this line, and I'm glad now that I can call in and listen to the program. Are you on this show every Wednesday?
Every Wednesday.
All righty. So I will go back to listen.
Yeah, let me give out...
Tried very hard not to be on this line.
Let me give out that number for those who are interested. 605-477-3249. Gene, thanks so much for calling in. Dr. Shealy and I will be right back after top of the hour, news and commercial announcements. And we're going to talk about boredom and some of the fallout from being bored. It's not good. It's absolutely not good. We're going to talk about that. And syphilis is up. And beating cancer moved to the country. We're going to talk about those things. Dr. Norm Shealy and I will be right back. Everyone all set, cocked, locked. Here we go. Hour number 2 of USA Prepares. Dr. Shealy's with us. Dr. Shealy, I've got a short story I'd like to share with you. We have a mutual friend, you and I, and he has doctor in front of his name. His wife has doctor in front of her name, and they have a medical practice about 50 miles away from us. And this particular doctor and instructor and I have been working together. I've been helping him with his farm. And there's some things that I've been showing him how to do. For example, he had a problem with his plumbing on the farmhouse. And I taught him about PEX plumbing and why pipes break and so forth. And he had some wiring concerns. And so he and I have been in his house. And it's a very, very complex system. It had 3 or 4 generations of wiring in the house. And he brought in an electrician. The electrician walked out, said, just couldn't entertain even helping him resolve some of the issues. So I've been helping him and teaching him about wiring and Ohm's law and even fixing his driveway. They had a washout with one of our storms here in Missouri, and so I recommended that he bring in a certain kind of stone, and I showed him how to use his tractor to, with his front end loader to smooth out the driveway. And here's the whole point of this. I got a call from him 2 days ago. His wife, who I mentioned is also a doctor, said, "Why don't you call Vinny and tell him what happened?" So he called me, and he said, "I saved $400. And I said, "Great, tell me about it." So he said that, well, in his medical practice in the city, one of the fluorescent lights that they have many of overhead failed. So he asked one of his employees to call the electrician. And so she called the electrician and reported back to him that the electrician was busy. He said, "Call him back and tell him never mind." Meaning, he probably didn't say it quite that way, but, thanks, but we'll take care of it ourselves. What he did was he felt that with the training that I gave him, the hands-on, and when I showed him how to do things, I would say, "Here's what we're going to do. Here's how we're going to do it. Here's why we're going to do it. Here's the screwdriver." And, he would actually turn the screwdriver and he would do it and I would stand next to him. Now, it took longer than if I did it by myself because I was in the teaching mode. Well, what happened was he called me to tell me that he became empowered. So when his driveway washed out, he brought in some more stone, and he called the stone company, brought in more stone, called his neighbor, borrowed his neighbor's Bobcat with a front end loader, and spent, half a day rebuilding his driveway. 36 tons of stone. And so here is how empowerment works, Dr. Shealy. And the reason I'm telling you this is he told me that he went to Lowe's and he figured out that he needed a ballast for his fluorescent light. But he didn't want to buy one because it was less expensive each if you bought a 4-pack. So he figured that they're going to fail some more and he's going to be up there on the ladder fixing more ballast. And the whole point of this little discussion, Dr. Shealy, is that that's what we're doing. Medically, you are empowering people to take care of their own health. That's what we do here at USA Prepares. And I want to thank you for doing that.
Fabuloso. That's Italian for fabulous.
So, well, I get these calls from our doctor friend, and he shows me the ladder, and he's making planks he's building like scaffold pieces, and he's up there. He's doing all kinds of cool mechanical, electrical, and plumbing, and roadwork things. It is just awesome, and it just makes me feel so good to know that we're having some impact in that arena, that it's working. Now it's not for everybody. Because everybody's not listening to what we talk about, but those who do, I think, are becoming more and more empowered to do things. So, and I have one more story to share with you, and I think it has to do with steroids. So yesterday, I was working on the John Deere tractor, and it's a 1984 or 85 model, and it has a cab, and I'm going to be baling hay tomorrow. And so I was working on the air conditioning system, and I went to get a part at the local chain store, auto parts place, about 20 miles from our house. So I went in, and there were a bunch of customers all lined up at the counter, and all the salespeople were busy behind the counter helping all these customers. And it became my turn. And I said, before I called them up, and I said, "Do you have this particular part?" And they said, "Yes." And I said, "Would you hold it for me?" And they said, "Yes." And I said, "What is the price?" And they said, $134.99. I said, "Great, I'll be there in about 20 minutes. So I arrived and I waited my turn. And when it became my turn, they said, "You're the guy who wanted that part, right?" And I said, "Yeah, that's great. I'm Vincent." They said, "Great, we have it." And they put it on the counter. And I said, "Let me ask you a question." And I don't know if this is the steroids talking or whether it's just me. And I said, "Help me understand this. I've been a customer. I've had a commercial account for 8 to 10 years. And when I open this, and this is where I can charge, and you send me a bill. And I have a lift at our shop, and we help people, and we buy a lot of stuff from you guys. But I'm paying the same price that everybody else pays. But I have a commercial account. Then they began to explain to me that, well, it's policy and it depends on how much volume you use and, you spend. And I said, but I've been a customer for 8 to 10 years. They said, well, we have to review your account from time to time. I said, yeah, you've been telling me that for years. And I never seem to get the discount. So what's up? And so they told me about policy. And I said, so I leaned back and I pointed out the window at the AutoZone store across the road, their competitor. I said, if I go over there, I get 10% off everything. As a matter of fact, they'll give me halfway between Rock Auto's price and their price, which is even lower than 10%. It's more like 25% off. If I ask for it, they'll do that. And they said, do you know why? Vincent, do you know why they do that? And I said, because they want my business. And so we get into this discussion, and Dr. Shealy, I'm getting more and more forceful, saying, I don't understand. I don't understand why you guys aren't taking care of me better. And I said, I know I like you guys, but AutoZone likes me too, and they're willing to give me a better price. And so finally I said, am I in the wrong store? Now, Dr. Shealy, my question to you is, I convinced them, and it wasn't like I was yelling. I wasn't, just using my normal tone of voice. But everybody in the store was paying attention to everything I said. And they're wondering how come they're not getting better prices too. So I wasn't really quiet. I was, saying it so, anybody who wanted to listen could listen. Ultimately, they decided they would give me 20% off. Is that the steroids or is that me, Dr. Shealy?
As always, you're on it. Right on. Well,
what I'm saying, Dr. Shealy, is I've had it. I've absolutely have had it. And I'm standing up for everything I think is right. I really am. I'm asking for things that I think I should be getting. I'm just not letting things go with people's mistakes. And so when I got home, I looked at the transaction receipt. And by the way, I happened to meet the manager of the store at that point. And I looked at, and they made a mistake in their favor. So I called up the manager and I said, I'm Vincent. Remember me? Oh, yeah. You were just here a couple minutes ago. I said, yeah. Help me understand. I'm looking at this receipt. I think there's a mistake. Can you tell me if you intended to charge me what you did or you actually intended to charge me less? Can you help me with that? And the manager says, let me bring it up. Okay, what's the transaction number? He goes, you know what? You're right. We made a mistake. We should have caught that. We didn't catch that. So what I'm saying is, I'm less likely to let things go now. I want to resolve them very quickly, and I want to resolve them to everyone's satisfaction. But is that really the steroids, or do you think it's just the way I am, and it's just I'm getting older or something? Do you have a feel for what
reality?
Okay.
I mean,
so we all should be doing this.
With detachment, without you don't have to be angry about it. Just this is a fact.
Right.
Are you willing to deal with it as a fact?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And once you've done that, to me, that is a healthy way to do it.
Okay.
An unhealthy way is to let other people take advantage of you.
Mm-hmm. So we put an ad in on the internet in Craigslist. We have a hay rake for sale, and I priced it at about 50% less than everybody else's. I don't want anybody to buy something from us and say, you know what, we paid too much. I don't want them to buy something and say, we coulda, shoulda, woulda if we had known. I want them to be happy with it, so I'm willing to sell it for 50% less. It's used, okay? And so I put this ad in the paper, and a guy called me up and he said he wanted to come out and look at it maybe tomorrow. And I said, well, tomorrow's really kind of bad for me because we're going to be doing hay. Tonight would be good. And it was plenty of daylight. It was maybe 6 o'clock. He said, okay. Okay, he'd come out. And he looked at it and he hemmed and hawed. And so we agreed on a price of $1,000. It's very, very fair. Actually, it's low. And so we shook hands on it. And he said, I want to write you a check. And I said, is it a local check? And he said, no, it's from Ohio. I said, I'd prefer, he was just moving to the area. And, he didn't really have an address. And I said, I'd prefer cash if that's okay with you. He said, okay, we can do that tomorrow. And so we agreed on a time. That was yesterday. and he was going to be there around noon after the broadcast. And no call, didn't show up. I called him, no answer. So I said to my son this morning, so if that guy calls and he wants to buy the hay, what do you think? He said, I'm busy.
Turnabout is fair play.
So the guy's not getting the rake. Dr. Shealy and I'll be right back, and we're going to talk about boredom. Boredom, and how it's not good. That's Dr. Norman Shealy's with us, normshealy.com. Dr. Shealy, I was reading an article about boredom. I can't imagine being bored, and we talked about this during the first hour, and I know you can't imagine being bored either, but this article talks about if a person has the wrong kind of boredom, it can make them, tend to make them obese, self-destructive, sexually impotent, and it can lead to an earlier death. What are your thoughts about boredom?
Well, boredom to me is mental laziness, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's preoccupation with not feeling good about yourself.
Mm. Low self-esteem.
Yeah, low self-esteem. Mm-hmm. And once that happens, everything goes to pot, so to speak.
Is that a woe is me kind of an attitude that a person who's
exactly
bored?
You know, they don't like me, I'm not good enough, et cetera, et cetera.
So what do we do about it?
Well, they are depressed, they are low in serotonin, and they have all kinds of other possible things. Air bliss and fire bliss both can help depression, which is an underlying, preoccupation, if you will, or a precursor of boredom. It's a very complex thing. They need help, but I wouldn't go to an average physician or psychologist or psychiatrist for it.
Do you see and have you seen in your medical practice over the decades, Dr. Shealy, a link between boredom, low self-esteem, and lack of great health? Do you see, are they all tied together?
Yes, it's all part of the whole. I mean, Vince, to me, the most shocking fact of all facts that I know, which is a few, only 2.7% of Americans, 2.7, less than 3%, have the basic 4 health habits. The basics. Mm-hmm. No smoking, body mass index of 18 to 24, 5 or more servings of fruits and vegetables a day, and exercise 30 minutes, 5 days a week. That is essential for health. And only 2.7% of people have those habits. And that doesn't even include sleeping 8 hours a day.
You know, it's interesting what I've seen lately, Dr. Shealy. You know, I've been in many stores. I was in a couple of them yesterday. I was in the auto parts store, as I mentioned. And so while I'm waiting, I started talking to the guy next to me. There was an old 1950s, 1960s Metropolitan automobile outside. Very rare vehicle. You hardly ever see one. I thought, that guy was about the right age. And I said, is that your Metropolitan out there? That's kind of neat. And it so happened that it wasn't. But, I just started talking to him, and we struck up this conversation. And, for a couple minutes, we were buddies. And the next store I went to, it was a farm and ranch supply outside of Springfield, and I needed to buy a couple pounds of various size washers, for nuts and bolts. I just needed the washers, and so I bought them, and I had a bag of them. You buy them by the pound. And so I was walking out of the store, and they had a sale on vegetable plants, tomatoes and peppers, and 50% off. And they looked like they were really wilted. So I was just kind of looking at them on the way out. And there was a woman about my age there, and I said, "Hi, boy, it looks like these could use a little water, huh?" She looked at me like, "What's with you?" Didn't say a word to me. It was like frosted that I had the nerve to say something, to engage in light conversation. But that's kind of what I do. I'm kind of a maybe I appear to be a happy guy as I travel, and I'm willing to talk to anybody. But I'm wondering if there are a lot of unhappy people around, because not everybody is. Dr. Shealy, here's the point. Nobody comes up to me and says, hey, like I do to them.
Well,
am I out of order, or are they maybe
you're
depressed?
That tells you about the rest of the world, doesn't it?
I'll get in a line for something, and I'll be waiting. I'll turn to the person behind me. I say, I hope this is the longest line because that's the one I want to be in. And then we chuckle. But a lot of people just aren't happy. We'll be right back. Dr. Shealy is with us, medical doctor, normshealy.com, NORMSHEALY.com. And if you'd like to sign up for the same newsletter that I get multiple times per week, just go to normshealy.com, and it's free. And if you'd like to peruse his offerings, and like the Bliss oils, the magnesium lotion and spray, and some of the other products, and his youth formula, which I take daily, normshealy.com, NORMSHEALY.com. Dr. Shealy is with us every Wednesday, 2 hours, and has been for years. Dr. Shealy, I'm reading an article about it's about the public health in England, and it's showing that syphilis cases have doubled from 2012. And
Wow.
it talks about, it talks about why. And it seems that, people are engaging in unsafe activities, and they have names for these activities called chem, C-H-E-M as in chemical, chem sex, the use of hookup applications, meaning telephone applications. If someone wants to have sex, they can get on their phone, use the application, and find someone who they don't know and have sex with that person, men with men, and so forth. And they even have parties. They call them POZ, P-O-Z, P-O-Z parties, where people in HIV-positive men select sexual partners. So there are even applications where you can, expand the population of those with syphilis. It makes no sense to me why this is happening. But we have the highest, according to this post, it's called the telegraph.co.uk, syphilis cases hit the highest level since 1949 amid the rise in risky sex. Dr. Shealy, for those of us who are not participating in this risky behavior, for those of us who don't want to get syphilis, are there precautions other than, don't become involved in this behavior? Can we get syphilis through contact that's not sexual? Can someone who makes our sandwich at the local submarine sandwich shop, can we get syphilis from them, or does it have to be sexual in nature?
I think I'm about to throw up. I often say, these days, I don't even like to shake hands with people.
Right.
The chances of getting syphilis other than having sex are low.
Okay.
I mean, it's a question of, how it gets into the body, et cetera. But I'm amazed. I thought the Brits were much more conservative than we are, and maybe that kind of thing goes on in this country as well. But I don't understand. I mean, to me, having sex with someone you don't know would not be psychologically possible.
Mm-hmm. So let's. Here's what I was thinking, Dr. Shealy. So a guy's making a hamburger at the hamburger joint, and he has syphilis. He sneezes just as he's wrapping that hamburger, to put on your tray so you can. I'm thinking of like a fast food joint. Okay, so he's going to wrap that hamburger, put it on the tray. It's going to be served to you, but he sneezes just before he wraps it, and so his bodily fluids end up on that hamburger from that sneeze. Do we have to worry about that, or are we relatively safe?
You're relatively safe, but it's still obviously possible. You're getting into some pretty difficult territory. I am often appalled when I go to major meetings, and I go in to urinate, okay, and I wash my hands, and I see people come out of the toilet and walk out of the room without washing their hands.
Right.
So there's all kinds of, possibilities of all kinds of disease. Most places have this sign, if you're an employee, you must wash your hands before returning to work. Well, to me, you don't have to be an employee. If you go to the bathroom, I don't care what you do at the bathroom or the toilet room, wash your hands.
Yes.
And so if a person doesn't wash their hands, there's all kinds of possibilities of contamination.
Dr. Shealy, one of the practices that I do is and I don't like going to restaurants. I really don't, because I'm concerned about the kind of things that I just mentioned. But the first thing that I do is I will go into the men's room. The first thing. And based on how the men's room looks, I might stay or I might leave.
Oh, Vince, I love you.
Well, I'm serious. I'm absolutely serious. And this is not something that I started this week. This has been going on for decades. And my logic is this. If the men's room is filthy, the kitchen isn't that far away.
Exactly.
If the men's room has paper towels on the floor, and if there's urine under the urinals, and if there's toilet paper, on the floor, if the sink is wet and filthy, I'm not staying. I've spent as much time as I'm going to spend there. I'm leaving. And I literally do that. So I literally base the entire decision on whether to stay or leave on the men's room. And if Mrs. Finelli is with me, she will check out the ladies' room, and then we'll compare notes. And then we'll decide if we're going to stay. Now,
I think that's smart. That's all I can say. Of course, I don't like to eat out either. I only do it primarily when I'm traveling.
So I was in the Chinese factory outlet, which is the name I use for Walmart several weeks ago. I needed something, and they had it. And so I went in to the men's room, and I came out, and I asked for the store manager. And so I said, you guys have a rake? I think you're going to need a rake to clean the men's room. It looked like there was a paper fight in there. And, you can, and I'm sure it's not the employees that are doing all of it. They might participate in some of it. But it takes a lot of customers who have absolutely no concern for the next guy to leave paper towels, toilet paper all over the floor. And then I was in the men's room at Home Depot, maybe the next week. And there was a guy in there, and we're washing our hands at the sink. And I said, so what do you think it is? And I'm looking at all these paper towels that are thrown all around the trash basket, all around on the floor. Now, they didn't make it into the trash basket, and it's not all that hard to do because the paper towel dispenser is right near it. And I said, so what do you think it is? Do you think it's a hard shot to make? So this guy and I are talking in the men's room. It's like, yeah, there's no reason for people to, what is so hard about taking that paper towel that's in your hand right now and dropping it in the trash basket? What's so hard about that? What about the guy who's got whose job it is to pick up all that stuff? How about some compassion for him or her if it's the ladies' room? Really? Are we that insensitive? Are we that me first that we just don't care about anything, anyone, anybody? It's an outrage. So I make it a point to say things and encourage people to do, the right thing, the decent thing. And I'm becoming more and more outspoken about it. So class, you may want to do the same thing I do, engage in conversation, and maybe we can clean up the planet just a little bit. Dr. Shealy, you and I talked about country living versus city living, and living longer and living healthier. Well, there's another article. It's unbelievable. Like a couple months, 6 months, a year, 2 years after we talk about these things, people are starting to catch on. I don't know if they're delayed in their response, whether they're listening to us and they decide maybe they'll write an article about it, or whether they're just catching on, a little late in the game. But there's an article that says, move to the countryside if you want to beat cancer. Rural living reduces the risk of dying from the disease by 29%, and it's all to do with the local GP, meaning general practitioner. I think that's part of it, Dr. Shealy. The article talks about, if you live in the countryside and you have a countryside doctor, your countryside doctor probably knows you better than the city doctor who doesn't get a chance to spend more than 7 minutes with you once in a while. Hardly knows you, has to read your chart to figure out who the heck you might even be. What do you think about that? You think that there's a relationship between living longer, surviving these very serious diseases, and the fact that maybe your doctor in the country might know you better than if you live in an urban environment?
Well, that's part of it, but of course there's additional information. There's good evidence that rats who are crowded have more illnesses, and living in a city is more crowded any way you look at it. So I wouldn't put it just on the fact that your country doc might be more attentive to you, but I think it's a combination of total lifestyle.
Mm-hmm. There was a story that I started to read and didn't really get to, but the headlines were kind of like this. There's a person that is in France and is suing because of the quality of the air in France. The air, and if I've been careful to look at images that I see on the internet. So let's say it's a distant shot from a city. When I mean shot, I mean photograph or image, camera type picture. And what I've noticed is if there are images of Chicago, Paris, London, New York City, Los Angeles, if the shot includes a picture of the skyline, what you'll see is haze, which is really pollution, like a dome, literally a dome of tannish, grayish, brownish pollution over the city, which everyone gets a chance to breathe. Literally, it's a dome. And I believe, Dr. Shealy, isn't that what you're talking about? That's another part of it, pollution, along with the electromagnetic radiation and other pollution. Class, Dr. Norman Shealy is with us, medical doctor. Joining us right now, Kyle in Montana, USA Prepares instructor. Welcome, Kyle.
Good morning, guys. Dr. Shealy, I got a couple of questions real quick. I know we're at the end of the program. Is there a real reason why when, like somebody from the country, like Vince or me or maybe Joey, one of those guys, travel into town, that we get these feelings of wanting to become cannibals?
I think that's the same thing I was talking about with the studies on rats years ago. Crowding.
Yeah.
Makes people go crazy.
A couple of weeks ago, you were talking about thumbnails. I'll jump around here a little bit. And I was noticing, I started looking at mine when I did this, and it's kind of got a really slight wavy color, wavy texture to it. And only on the thumbnail does the white part of the thumb, it's about halfway across my nail. The rest of the nails on the rest of my hands just barely show. Just, maybe 1/8 of an inch at the most. And I was curious, is there any kind of a medical condition that would show up just with those two things?
Not that I know of, Kyle, but
okay.
A standard Kim panel would answer that question for you.
Yeah. I was just curious. I have all these thoughts. I get all these thoughts on different things throughout the week, and I keep thinking, man, I'm going to ask Dr. Shealy about that on Wednesday, and then I forget about a lot of them. But I was just more curious about that cannibalistic feeling because you go into town and
it just makes me want to run.
When they talk about useless eaters, I started to turn that around. Like, maybe they're just waiting to be eaten. There's a whole bunch of people in town there that look like that.
I'm with you.
Hey, anyway, no big deal. I just called to say hi to Vince and ask you this about because I've tested everything else, and even though I've had blood tests done and stuff and showed a few allergies to like dairy and a few things like that. But other than that, I've tried to cut that a lot back. and
Kyle,
started working out. Go ahead.
How are you doing since your surgery?
I am doing extremely good, Vince. My physical therapist, I had my knee replaced. That's the surgery, but my physical therapist said I was the new standard now, because he had never had anybody in 8 weeks reach within 2 degrees of his unoperated leg in motion in 8 weeks. He said in 25 years of doing it, he had never done that. He had never had that. So it's been a real blessing. And one of the best things he ever told me when we first started doing physical therapy was that, if it wasn't that you would whine and cry and scream, he said, I could actually lay you on your stomach, take your ankle, and push it all the way to your rear. And once you put it in that terminology, it's like if all I've got to do is put up with pain to get the motion, that's a no-brainer as far as I'm concerned. And so I'm back up. I'm walking like crazy. Like I've been working. We got all 8 beds of our garden ready. Plus I built another greenhouse over some corn in one of the beds, and we've got our whole greenhouse planted, and just going like gangbusters here.
It's too bad you're so bored with life.
Dr. Shealy, you took the words right out of my mouth. I was going to say, are you allergic to boredom, Kyle?
I am so allergic to boredom. I am so OCD anti-boredom, I can't hardly stand myself sometimes.
And do you have a list that's longer than you can complete?
Yep, it makes my arm hurt holding it.
Dr. Shealy,
three nuts of a kind.
I have a quick question for Dr. Shealy relating to Kyle. For his continued improvement in health, is there anything that he should be taking, any supplements that you recommend that will help him increase at an increasing rate?
Well, I definitely think the Kyani triangle would be at the top of my list.
Kyani. And that's what Dr. Shealy's talking about. Anything else, Dr. Shealy?
No, I think he's obviously doing the right thing already.
Kyle, hey, thank you so much for joining us. Kyle in Montana. Dr. Norman Shealy, thank you for being with us. Thank you for dispensing your medical advice and counsel. Class, above all, honesty and integrity. What happens next is up to you.